Welcome back to my podcast, the show where we dive deep into the world of real estate, leadership, and building powerful partnerships that move businesses forward. I'm your host, Scott Kumler, and today we've got a very special guest joining us. We're sitting down with my very own wife, Cinnamon Kumler, because I get a lot of husband wife teams that reach out to me wondering how we built up such a highly successful husband wife team in the real estate industry. So today we will both be taking you through the exact steps and processes that we did to build a team that is now doing over 200 transactions a year. If today's episode sparks ideas for you and you're an agent who wants to explore bigger opportunities, we'd love to connect. If you're interested in learning what a partnership with me and Cinnamon looks like, either call or text us at 623-387-2688 or set up a Zoom meeting with my calendar link below. Now let's get started. All right, guys, what's up? Scott Kumler here, and today I'm on with a very special guest, someone who's very close to my heart, and it's my wife, Cinnamon. So, Cinnamon,
Woohoo.
welcome on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast and I wanted to bring you on today, which I think is very important, is you know, obviously we're a husband-wife team. We've been in real estate together for, ever since, basically we both got in real estate. I know I got in a little bit before you did, you got a little bit after me. But I get reached out to by a lot of different husband-wife teams asking how we run our business, and I think that's very important and that's very valuable.
Yeah.
And so I felt like it was a great, idea to have my wife obviously come on today's podcast, kind of give a little bit insight, on how it is working with, as a partner with your husband in the real estate industry. So kind of get started off, Cinnamon. I know a lot of people already may know this because I probably tell a story on a lot of my podcasts that I'm on, everything like that. But why don't you just kind of give a little background of what you did before you got into real estate, and then kind of what obviously got you into real estate as well when you decided to get your license.
Okay. When we moved out here to Arizona, on a hope and a dream of Scott's, which was delightful because you had laid it all out. You had a really good plan. And who was I to basically say, that's not going to work? I've always believed in you in everything that you've done. So I think it was just kind of a natural progression for me to just, get on board and stay on board. So working in retail was demanding, but I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed working with people, helping people in that aspect. And so once the car accident happened, it was kind of just an easy transition. It's almost like God said, "Okay, here you go. This is the way. This is what we're gonna do now, and let's basically go all in because that's what we ended up having to do." Classes were a little difficult, kind of in pain, but I just pushed through. I just went, I realized I think in this partnership that I was more of a follower than a leader. I enjoyed leading in retail, but it was a lot of work. It was a lot on me, when people don't show up and stuff like that. So it was me working extra, and it was not really paying off the way that I really thought it would. And then after the accident, trying to go back into it, there was just a lot more pains. Being on my feet 8 hours, 9 hours a day, lifting, struggling and stuff like that, it was not feasible. It just was not going to work. And I remember calling you up going, "I don't think I can do this anymore." And you was like, "I didn't expect you to go back. Give them your 2 weeks." And I'm like, he's like, "You even said," you're like, "You can leave tomorrow as far as I'm concerned." And I'm like, "Well, no, I want to get my 2 week notice." So you've always been accommodating in me joining. So I think you had a lot more faith in me in the aspect. I think because of my personality being a little different than yours, I'm a little more over the top sometimes when it comes to things. You're the even keel one, so where I'm the emotional, you're like the flat line. But it works out. It totally works out. We were able to kind of split the responsibilities, not down the middle because you take on a whole lot more, but you were able to give me things that would, that I could do that enhanced your work, which that's basically what marriage is that, I'm your partner and I'm here to enhance what you do. And I think it just kind of fits really well with what the way we run stuff.
Yeah. So you kind of alluded to it as far as like a partnership and, it's kind of almost like splitting responsibilities because I think
Mhm.
one of the things that most people, most agents, almost couples, kind of get wrong when it comes to working together is they both kind of overstep each other's roles, right? Like, they do the same thing. Like I've seen husband
Mhm.
and wife teams that will like do all the showings together. They do all this together and they feel like they have to like basically be on top of each other every single time. And so one of the things, that's really worked for us is you want to figure out because you're both a little bit different. You want to figure out what one of your strengths are and then what your weaknesses are as well too. And so that way
Mhm.
you complement each other. So that way you're not doing the exact same thing. So I feel like that's kind of one of the ways that is the most important when it comes to trying to be efficient. Because in order to be a real team, you have to be able to, complement each other, right? For example, if you run a basketball team, and if you had 5 point guards, probably wouldn't work out. You need a point guard, you need a center, you need a forward. They all have different roles, different responsibilities. And that's the same thing when it comes to teams, and that's the same thing when it comes to a husband and wife team. So when we first got started working together, obviously when you got your license, why don't you take it through a little bit, kind of what your roles and responsibility was at the beginning. So not right now. Let's say we'll kind of go through the transition and everything like that, and then the progression. But at the beginning, what were your roles and responsibilities, and then what were my roles and responsibilities when we first got into real estate together?
At first you were doing a lot of open houses. You really stepped into that role. And you were working your tail off. And I remember the first time ever going with you to set up the open house signs and watching you, I was terrified because you like parked right in the middle of the road, right in that center turn area, and you would get out and you'd have stacks of freaking signs in both hands running across the street like Frogger. And I mean, it's like on a busy Saturday or Sunday during like in the areas especially that we were doing at that time because we were in very prominent areas that were lots of traffic. So you were getting some really good input into your open houses and stuff just from where you were picking. But my job was basically I would set up the inside of the open house. I would have all of the tables set up, make sure the house was, organized or whatever, and then set up the things, for the open house. You would set up all the signs, and then come in and I remember the first time I ever gave you a beach towel to dry off with because you were sweating so much. You're like, oh my gosh, why didn't I ever think of this? And that's why you have a wife. Um, but so yeah, so I did the fluff, I did the setting up the table and had to have snacks or treats for the kids and stuff like that. And just my personality, talking to people as they came in. We were able to tackle, different groups of people. And yeah, just kind of like the whole reason my personality helped with other areas that you didn't, and your personality and your knowledge, because you're like a freaking encyclopedia sometimes when it comes to this stuff. It just worked. And so then once it got to the point where we were getting a lot of leads into our database, then I would start doing the follow-up calls and stuff like that. You would 9 times out of 10 set the appointment right there if you were doing had a really good couple people that you were touring with. So you would have appointments set, then I would get other appointments to through the follow-up. Once that became basically my follow-up was interfered with the busyness of the open house, then that's when you decided that, you know what, we need to build on this team aspect and kind of, if we're sitting at open houses, the good thing is like you could go, do some showings and stuff like that and I could stay there. But once we had a lot of leads and stuff to follow up with, then it kind of made it hard for me to do that following up in the open house. So you started building a team.
Yep, yep, yeah, and I mean, so yeah, you made a good point, right? With open houses, even when it comes to open houses, with the efficiency of it, we kind of split it up
Mhm.
on how we would do it, right? Like you set the inside, I did all the signs. Then
Yep.
like let's say we were to close the open house down, I took all the signs down while you're still there to collect extra people that might come in right at the end of it. So I guess we didn't turn anyone away. And then by the time I'd get back to the house, then that's when our open house would officially be done because I'd already picked up all the signs at that point and we close up inside as well too.
Yep.
One thing I know you didn't mention, obviously I did all the buyer and listing presentation. So typically what would happen is when you do the follow-up, you would schedule a buyer or listing presentation for me. I
Mhm.
would do the buyer or listing presentation at that point. And then typically when the way we'd handle showings, obviously, was I would do the majority of showings. But you were kind of a great backup, which then allowed us to basically service everyone. So if I wasn't available, you always were. So no matter how busy we got, we always were able to take care of our clients, no matter what their goals are. It's
Yeah.
kind of funny when I first got into when I first started doing that, I started doing buyer listing presentations. I was afraid to like hand off a showing to you, and then I started realizing when I started doing that my clients actually liked you a lot more than me. Like you were like you mentioned, you were the personality, and so a lot of times they were probably more excited to start working with you anyways. And that's kind of where I tell people all the time, I'm like, you're the personality of the group. I'm analytics, I'm even keel, stuff like that. But you make things a little bit more fun. So, that's why I think a lot of our clients probably end up liking you a lot more than me. So then at that point, it became a lot easier to go ahead and have one of my clients, have you show some of my clients' properties because then it got a little bit, and then you were able to kind of take on more of a role, even from a showing standpoint. But obviously, the follow up is a lot of work in itself. And
Yeah.
so that definitely took a lot of effort. But one of the great things about us doing open houses together, and one of the reasons we would do that is because it allowed me the flexibility to leave to do showing. So, for example, if I had to leave to do a showing or a buyer consult listing presentation, you could still be there to collect the leads. At one point, during one of our open houses, and I know you remember this story as well too. We did an open house over in the Glendale area. And we had someone come in and they're just like, I don't even want to see the home. I just want you to sell my house. And I was able to, because we were at the open house and we were there together, it allowed me the flexibility to actually leave to do a listing presentation at this guy's home, while you could still stay there and collect the leads. And then, I was able to go there, do a listing presentation, convince them to use us, ended up getting.
And what was funny after that is that I went to pick up the signs and he was so enamored by the amount of signs that you had put up. But once I had gone to go pick them up, half of them were knocked down by the wind. So it was like, okay, well, at least we had so much out there that they withstood the other parts of the wind. But yeah, it's pretty cool whenever that kind of thing happens.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a process, and people appreciate the effort, and especially even if they're blown over by winds, like people will see all the signs you put out there, and they're like, oh, this is different than the average agent. Um, anyways, so I gotta ask the hard hitting questions, that everyone wants to know. Okay, as someone that's part of a married couple in the real estate industry together, what is it like working with your spouse?
Don't do it. No, just kidding. um, there's pros and cons, definitely. I think the pros are that we, especially with you, um, we have decided to stay in our lanes. So, um, I'm the backup. I'm your helper. So whatever, we've been able to try different things. We've been able to try door knocking. We've been able to try, the expired mailers, not only just the open houses, but doing the door knocking before the open houses, to kind of get the neighborhoods, so we've been able to try different things with it being the two of us. And not like stress over it, because if it's just one agent, then they're stressing over, okay, what do I gotta do next? What do I gotta do next? With the two of us, I'm that kind of person where I can do the marketing parts and those kind of things, and you are the analytics and the business guy of it all. I try with the business stuff, but and with a lot of it, I love doing the contracts. I love writing contracts. I love doing all of that part, but it's that other element that just was not very good with me. So I decided to not be so aggressive in the real estate, just be what I can be. And that just has worked for us. And honestly, I think it's worked out in that aspect because we're not stepping on each other's toes. I know I have told told you a couple of times whenever you've hired another person, an ISA or whatever, well, what am I going to do now? the funny thing is there's plenty of things to do in real estate, and especially now with us in this new brokerage, that there's other avenues for me to go also. There's so many avenues to go with real estate that um it keeps us busy, and I enjoy it. I know you tease me because I tune you out 95% of the time when you're trying to talk about stuff. But I get it eventually, you always say repetition. So yeah, you repeat it enough times to me and I'll understand it. But it's been good. It's been good.
Yeah, and one thing that's important, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit. One thing that's very important, I think that the anyone's listening should really understand is that as a husband wife team doesn't mean your roles can't change, right? It's very fluid, and so you always need to be looking at what's working, what's not working, where things can be adjusted. If someone's maybe struggling in a specific area, how can you can go ahead and change it to something else. And so there's a lot. So it's always fluid. So everything that you did at the beginning is different than today, and you do things differently now, and your roles are different now. Same thing with
Mhm.
mine. Like my roles at the beginning in the industry are different than they are now with our team, and they're always evolving. And because then
Mhm.
naturally you're going to figure out what someone excels at. Someone may like doing something, but do they excel at it? Okay, no, maybe you need to make an adjustment here because you can find someone better that excels at that than maybe someone that is doing it. And so it's always important to understand that just because but you always want to kind of find your system and then kind of make sure that you're always analyzing where you can improve and then where you can substitute in other areas. And that's when you start looking at hiring outside help. Like you mentioned, we hired ISAs at one point, to make call follow up with our leads, and then, you did like you do a lot of the marketing stuff, right now, what you didn't do at the beginning, like, so now you worry about like business cards, flyers, signs, like all that stuff as well too, and that's kind of what your roles are now. So it's always evolving and always fluid. So make sure you're always analyzing, and then open communication I think is extremely important as well too. Having the conversations about it. What does someone like doing? I know I've talked to you about this a lot of times. Where you're doing a role, and I would come up to you and say, "Do you like doing what you're doing, or do you think you
Yeah.
feel better doing something different?" And that's important to have that open communication as well too, and then figure out how you can kind of come up with the system.
And I think honestly too, with a husband and wife team, it all boils down to communication. And I think that is, just husband and wife's period. You're going to have the communication. When it comes to being your business partner, you have to take your ego out of it. And I think that is one thing that I think that you actually had to combat, and you kind of said it there, where it was the handing off your people. You've already done all this prep with them. You've done the buyer consultation, the listing consultation, or what, and you've made that thing. Now you're taking this precious egg and you're handing it to somebody else to do the tours and to do those kind of things, and you have to have trust in that person and trust in your own abilities that you lined that person up perfectly, that it's just going to be seamless. But yeah, take you got to take your ego out of it. I've seen plenty of husband and wife teams that are very competitive, and that drives them too, and that's fantastic. I'm just not that competitive a person. I'd rather be a partner and help somebody get through something than be up against them. So I think that's why it works with us.
Yeah. So you kind of mentioned it earlier, in one of your last comments, and you talk about the fact that we've now moved our team over to EXP.
Mhm.
So now that we've moved over to EXP, obviously it's been a few months now. Well, what's your experience been like? Like, how do you like it at EXP? How do you feel like it's been going? Like, what's your overall takebacks? I know you've been kind of more involved in a lot of mastermind and stuff like that, but what overall is your overall opinion? And not only that, but with the upline that we're part of as well too.
Um, I love it. I think it has more structure than what we actually were at before. With all of the masterminds or meetings, however you want to call them, all of these other little help points that you have, that they offer you, especially with our upline. We have some amazing coaches and amazing leaders that have done more than I could ever possibly think of, with AI, with just real estate, with being able to know the numbers and know the different, entities that are coming in to, those are deep researched things that these people have done that have taken all of that learning, all of that time away and given us the nugget, and so that's what I love about our upline is that we have amazing instructors, teachers, people that have just lived it and constantly pouring into us. So that's amazing. And I think just I'm looking forward to EXPCon. I'll be able to meet all of these people that have poured some really good information into us. The man, I I personally don't have to go out and sell real estate, and I can still make money sitting on my hiney, just meeting some people here and there, with the revenue share, and that excites me just for the simple fact that, um, like before I was the helper, so I may only have what do I have like 20 transactions, really 25, maybe 50 in the time that I've been on. It's it's not about all of that, making the big bucks or making, that. It's me being that underhanded helper to help you guys, to help the team. Um, but knowing that I'm getting compensated for that, it's just it's amazing. It gives me a little more I can relax a little bit knowing that I can still, you know, bring something to the table with our team and, still be here for them.
Yep. Yep. Now, I know you mentioned about all the training that we're able to provide all of our agents and how much we're able to help um, other agents within the industry. Obviously we have access to some of the top trainers or coaches. We have
Mhm.
access to some top universities. Also anyone that joins the organization can also there's different masterminds every single day that they can plug into. I think there's about like average of two masterminds every single day, depending on what their goals are. But one of the masterminds that you have access to that I don't have access to that you definitely love going to is the women's only Wolfpack Mastermind every single Wednesday. And I've never seen you so
Okay.
excited ever since, after you get off one of those women's only Wolfpack. So I got to ask you from someone who's never been able to attend, who cannot attend, um, what happens in those women's Wolfpack Mastermind?
Well, I can't tell you. I think it's top secret. I can tell you this though, we don't talk about hair and nails. I mean, we talk about real estate. These ladies are kick-ass ladies that are dominating the field of real estate in their towns and countries too. There's some that, are from other countries, but the I to listen to these ladies be so aggressive and powerful in their real estate business, it's encouraging. It's very encouraging. So yeah, so even though I'm not like out there do, I still get that feeling of that. I guess the great thing about EXP is that I don't feel just connected to the Kumler group. I feel connected to EXP now because they've opened it up to where you can communicate with people all over the world that are going through the same things that you're doing, the same tasks that you have to do, the same lead gen that you have to do, the same, all of the hassles, the interest rates, and all of everywhere. And it's just nice to have a global brokerage that's just gives you that ability to connect with more people.
Yep. Yep. Awesome. And um if you do are like if your husband wife team or just anyone in general at all, that's looking to partner with us and want to see what that looks like and what as far as like all the different trainings we have access to, all that stuff. Don't be afraid to go ahead and click on the Calendly link below this meeting. Where there's before this video, and schedule a no hassle, no pressure meeting with me. Just kind of see what partnering with me and Cinnamon look like. Don't be afraid to ask any questions that you have. We're a pretty open book. We'll give you the pros and cons, let you know what EXP is all about. I always tell people, typically the upline that you join in EXP is going to have a huge factor on the experience that you get. And so one of the things I love about this, about our organization, is we're able to provide so much help and training, and provide so much value to agents. And we're also all aligned with the same mission, right? Which is basically providing 10 times the value at 1/10 the cost. And so definitely super interested. If you're interested in learning a little bit more and learning what a partnership with me and Simon looks like, if you're a husband-wife team that wants to maybe struggling to kind of work together and want to build up your team and figure out how we did it, don't be afraid to click the Zoom link below, and I would, or sorry, the Calendly link below, and I would definitely love to take you through what we've done to build up our team. So again, thank you, Cinnamon, for hopping on today's podcast.
Like I had a choice.
Great. It's great talking to you, and hope you guys all have an amazing day. Talk to you later. Bye.